strongly with my statement. My theory of prediction is this basically. If properly executed, companies like Facebook would obliterate companies, with all due respect, companies like eBay, as well as Oracle or SAP. The premise is this: social collaboration is the key, in consumer, and I think it solves a major pain point in enterprise too. That's kind of the heart, of everything that's moving around. And I think if properly executed, there will be a point where adding applications, like whether it's ERP or whatever you name it, all these different applications, as task-based application is quite easy on a collaborative software, rather than the other way around, which is the major pain point now. If you look at many of the ERPs, it's still struggling because this collaboration is lacking. Then Salesforce comes and kills people right hand, right? So I think as you see all these collaboration parts, it's picking up. And then in comes this, massive Facebook-type collaborations. It will definitely, make a dent on eBay and a lot of these supply chain companies too. So I'd like to start with Erik, since he's working with eBay, and take it, his view from there, from others. Thanks.
Well, if I have to pick one, I'm forced to say disagree, right? I mean, to give a more nuanced answer, I think it depends on what you mean by properly executed. That's kind of where the body's buried in your question. I mean, could I envision some sort of grand future where, we say, look, what Facebook's building is some sort of, Uber portal and a kind of very general platform, and they take their assets of behavioral data and general user activity and the social graph and identity management and all those pieces, and they build lots of things with them? Sure, I can tell that story, but so, and now for real, I guess I would lean towards the negative side, and I'll tell you why. I think that their assets are very strong towards certain kinds of use cases. In communication-oriented use cases, in entertainment use cases like we've started to see in the last year or so with the social games that have become very prevalent on the Facebook platform, they're doing extremely well. There are other areas where consumers are just not kind of adopting behaviors, and one area that they're not doing that in is e-commerce. Right? They've tried to develop a marketplace. It didn't work. Direct transactions, as I kind of referred to a little bit earlier, are not coming out of social media. Now, the social media is still influencing the e-commerce world, but it's not leading to directly transactional behavior. So I think I would be careful about kind of envisioning their assets going too broadly. I mean, I could spin an analogous story where I look at another potential internet starting point, and I look at someone like a Google, and I say, well, look what they have. They have a starting point. They have lots of user data. You could think about them, introducing that identity management system and using that data to build tools around collaboration and blah, 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 right? I could try to do that as well. I think they're also going to have difficulties taking what they've done in certain directions. That's not to say that Facebook doesn't have a fantastic future and can't take some of their assets, and broaden past what they have today, but I'm not ready to envision them as kind of taking over the world just yet.
I mean, you have to disagree there, because it just, with you, not with Erik, but it just, at the end of the day, look at Microsoft, you look at Google. I mean, it goes back to companies solve pain points, and they start with specific pain points, and they grow to slightly bigger areas. And sometimes you become a very dominant platform. But the reality is that Facebook, if they try to fight the Microsoft battle across, I mean, look at Microsoft itself. I mean, if you've got an operating system and applications, they've had a hard time competing on search. They've got all the resources in the world. They have a hard time competing against Google and search. So I think Facebook's good at what they do. They'll expand into the enterprise. They'll expand into different areas around advertising. But the reality is they're not going to replace an Oracle back-end database stuff, right? So I think they'll pick their battles, and they'll be a very big company. They are a very big company doing what they do, and they'll expand into some areas and get bigger. But you can't see them replacing everything that's out there.
Hi, my name is Rodrigo Martinez from Fat Student. My question is, well, you mentioned about cloud computing and social networking, right? But where do you think, or when do you think organizations large organizations will be willing to actually put all their data in the cloud? I guess the question is about security. Right?
You know, it's probably one of the single biggest issues is around the security of the data, right? So if you look at the, you know, when we say cloud, there's the public cloud and there's private clouds. And so what we're finding is, you know, I mentioned the CIO board that we have, you know, the Mercks and the Pfizers of the world are saying, hey, we need to have a private cloud. We're not comfortable. We can outsource some of the compute to, you know, to Amazon or to whoever else, but they're not yet comfortable having data out in the cloud. That's coming. You know, I mean, if you look at email being processed in the cloud, you know, 5-7 years ago, I was an investor in a company called FrontBridge that was bought by Microsoft. Postini got bought by Google. People were like, who's looking at my email? It's going through. It was always going through the internet. You were always looking at stuff. Yeah, it was public data at the end of the day, right? So I think it was in the cloud, right? So I think that model's kind of gonna, that fear is gonna go away over time, but I think it's gonna start with private clouds, and then it'll be hybrid clouds, and then you'll move into the public cloud. I don't know whether it's gonna be 5 years, 7 years, or 10 years, but it's gonna be there.